Hello, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to have you. In today's pick a card reading, I am going to leave it pretty open-ended for whatever message you need to hear at this time. So we'll be taking a look at a specific situation in your life and what you need to know about it. But first, we have 3 different groups that you can choose from with 3 different tarot decks and 3 different cards from one card from each deck to act as the signifier card. To start, we have the Lucid Dreams Tarot, and the card that I just shuffled out. The first court card that came out is what I used. So we have the Knight of Cups for the first card. The second group, I'm using the gold Aurora deck, and the card that came out was the Knight of Coins. And for the third group, I'm using the Botanica Tarot, and the card is the the King, the King of Swords. The other 2 are knights, so my first impression of that card was, I was like, oh wow, it's another knight. But it is interesting that we did get all masculine energy for the signifier cards today. And if you do not identify as masculine, don't feel like that means that there's not a message for you. Tarot is highly symbolic, and I personally view all 16 court cards as different aspects of the self, different energies that we can each tap into depending on our situation. And so it seems like the general trend for this collective, regardless of which group you choose, is to be a bit more active. This is going to be more action oriented instead of receptive. This is the yang energy, or yang if you prefer, yin and yang, but it's yang energy as opposed to yin. And so this could be energy that you identify with, or this could just be representative of energy that you need to tap into, if that makes sense. So take your time. If you aren't sure which group you want to pick, pause the video if you need to, and I'll see you in your reading. Hello, group number 1. If you chose the Knight of Cups from the Lucid Dreams Tarot, then this is going to be your reading. I had originally wanted to put your card up here, but each group got an extra card, so it seemed like it would get a little cluttered. So I'm going to go ahead and put your signifier card here. And I want to start off by going through some oracle cards that I pre-shuffled to get the general energy of this group, and you can use that to assess if this sounds like this reading is in alignment with your current energy. So an energy check, in other words. Oh, I don't like that these cards are like the same width. Anyway, okay. So to start off with, using the oracle deck I created, the Song of the Soul Oracle, your card is Love Maze. The lyric is, keep in mind that sometimes lies will try to split us apart. Keyword, lies. We have Pre-Night or Pray-Night with the keyword trust. We have the number 36, Leader of the Light. Where are you being called to serve and support others? And then we got 2 from the Goddess Power Oracle. We have number 13, Yoster, I believe. I'm not very good with the pronunciation, but the keyword is new beginnings. Then we also have number 42, Parvati, with the keyword devotion. And we have number 12, the Priest. Moy's rose, it's a wild rose. So those are your oracle cards. I am getting a very strong energy of spirituality from this group. You do not have to be religious or have like specific beliefs in order to be spiritual. I always say spirituality is a way of being. It's not a belief in any certain thing. And that way of being is being mindful, being aware. And I don't mean mindfulness in the sense of being thoughtful, but mindful in the sense of being in tune, being in alignment with yourself, as well as like the flow of the universe. But yeah, I'm getting very strong energy of spirituality. I mean, partly with the priest. So that card has a lot to do with spirituality, but generally speaking, with more than like the seen, what is visible in like our tangible reality. It's, you know, attention to things beyond that. It also has to do with devotion, with beliefs. But where do I want to begin? I guess we'll just start from left, go from left to right, maybe. I might end up jumping around, but we'll at least start here. With this energy of lies, keep in mind that sometimes lies will try to split us apart, as well as this card of trust. It could be the case that you are sort of feeling uncertain or being more easily influenced or swayed by things other people say, whether this is other people in your life or whether this is stuff you hear just on social media or, you know, the news, anything like that. Just being sort of sensitive to those things and allowing them to influence or make you question your own beliefs. That is another aspect of this priest card, is like considering your values and your beliefs, like reflecting on them. And with this card of trust, I'm getting that this is a need to trust yourself more, especially with this card, Leader of the Light. It says here, where are you being called to serve and support others? And that is an important aspect of the card that I'm going to get to in a moment. But this card also talks about being a leader, of even if you are in this energy of wanting to give and support other people, this card, like the guidebook specifically states, make sure you are not giving your power away. Of all of the things that you can give to others, never give your personal power away. Like, you need to be a leader. You need to be your own guide. You let your own inner light guide you, instead of allowing other people to lead you astray by what they're saying. And maybe you aren't feeling so confident about speaking up and expressing your own personal truth because of, you know, just not wanting to ruffle feathers or to, you know, be in a position of criticism or judgment from others that have different beliefs or opinions than you. But this card is really calling you to connect to your own inner wisdom. And in doing so, you set an example for others so that they can also, you know, like some people just sort of regurgitate. That's a gross word to use, but you know what I mean. Like, they just end up repeating things they've heard without really using their own judgment or considering what they believe. It's just easier to follow someone else. But you could be a leader in a positive sense of not telling what people to believe, but leading by example in the sense of living your own truth and encouraging other people to find that truth. And so being in this energy, this could be leading you to some kind of new beginning. But this card could also literally just be a new beginning in the sense of a new way of living, a new way of approaching life, one where you are trusting yourself and following your own light instead of just listening to what other people say. So I think that, you know, like for some of you, there could be, you know, this could be leading you to some sort of higher calling that can translate to something specific in your external reality. But for all of you, really, for anyone watching this, I am getting a bigger, broader message of a new way of approaching life. a new way of viewing things. And that is one where you are trusting yourself. Devotion has a lot to do with, devotion to a spiritual practice. It could be meditation. It could be just being devoted to your own personal values and beliefs. And that's not to say, like, the New Beginnings card, it also does talk about staying open. So being devoted to your own beliefs does not necessarily mean becoming closed-minded or stubborn about what you believe in. You can still have an openness, but being devoted to always bettering yourself, always raising your levels of consciousness, always seeking the truth of any situation, of, staying in alignment with, that way of living, of always trying to, whether it's like trying to stay in alignment with the highest good for everyone and trying to stay in alignment with your higher self, being devoted to that sort of spiritual path. And like I said, spiritual doesn't necessarily, you don't have to meditate to be spiritual. It's literally just a mindfulness of not being on the level of being easily or blindly led by what other people say, and just taking, giving away your personal power and letting other people dictate how you live your life, what you believe, and things like that. It's really just an awareness, self-awareness, as well as like just a greater raising your levels of consciousness to a higher perspective. Like this card also, seeing her, like she's on like a mountain peak. So she has that higher perspective. But whenever I think of that, I think about, I'll try to keep this tangent short, but whenever I try to describe like the ego and how the goal is not to kill your ego or to dissolve it. Some people and spiritually minded people think that you need to dissolve your ego, which like in moments, like that's a powerful thing to do, but it's not like it dies. It's not like it goes away. It's, there's actually Jung used an example one time, and I don't know that he used it specifically the way I am, but I think about him talking about like a problem of the ego is like a storm that's going on in the valley. But if an individual can climb the mountain, it's not that the storm stops. The storm is still going on, but they can see it from the higher perspective, from the mountaintop. So it's having that higher perspective. And it's important to emphasize that the individual in this case is not the mountain peak. It's not the valley. It's both. So the ego is a part of the self, but it's about transcending your ego. And so I think that that is another aspect of like a sort of spiritual way of living, is to not get stuck on the level of the ego. Because that's a lot of times what it's your ego that wants to, sort of blend in, or not like put yourself in the risk of getting judgment or criticism from others. So like this is usually stuff that goes on the level of the ego. But if you raise your awareness, you can be mindful of that and not be affected by it so much. Okay, so I think I want to go ahead and get into the tarot now. So we will get a card that is a bit more specific to your situation, the situation you are currently in, what challenge and opportunity that situation is providing, what action you should take, and then any additional advice. So let's go ahead and get started with a card for your current situation, or the situation that you need to hear, whatever this message is about more specifically. What is the current situation of group one? Okay, we have the Ace of Swords. So the keywords are breakthrough, truth, new insights, new ideas, vision, focus, mental clarity, success. So, I mean, this could be literally just, you know, like with what we've been talking about with like spirituality and of being able to like trust your own guidance, trust your deeper truths, and so you aren't being, you know, swayed by what other people are saying, trying to lead you astray, whether consciously or unconsciously. I don't think everyone always acts from a place of like malice, but it seems like from your devotion to your personal truth, to your spiritual practice, whatever it is, you are gaining clarity. Like you will be able to like cut through those lies and see right through them. So that's really exciting. I feel like I was kind of expecting to get something like a little bit more specific to like your external reality. And that could be the case that like I mean, we also have new beginnings, and aces always represent new beginnings and whatever their suit is. So in this case, for the Ace of Swords, this could be a new beginning in terms of, well, I always think of it as like ideas of new information. It could translate to a new beginning in like a career if you are, you know, in like, say you're a journalist or something like that, you know, like someone who works with information, with communication. I mean, everyone I feel like has to communicate to some degree within the workplace, but overall, I'm just getting the energy that this is like you being able to have clarity, you being able to connect with your truth, to know your inner truth without self-doubt, without worrying about what other people are saying. So let's get a card for the challenge of this situation. What is the challenge that group one is? I'm not taking all of those. There's 4 of them. So let's just keep shuffling. What is the challenge that group one is facing? It fell on the floor. All right, we have the 3 of Wands in reverse. Delays, lack of planning and progress, setback, obstacles, frustration, unexpected delays. The upright is about progress, expansion, confidence, new horizons, growth, foresight, a milestone. But this card upright to me also makes me think of support coming in. Like this person is watching their ships sail, like coming into the harbor for support. Or it could also, with the idea of expansion, the ships could be going out, you know, for the benefit of the individual. But what I'm getting from the 3 of Wands in reverse is that despite this breakthrough that you're having, there might not be, how should I say, like support from others in your life. Like other people aren't necessarily going to see what you see, you know, like maybe they're still caught up in this noise, that's leading them, or rather preventing them from seeing the truth that you are presenting to them. And it might just be a matter of time. You know, we have delays, but this could also be that even though you see clearly, maybe you see the direction, you know, like a new direction that you want to head in your life with this like new insight that you're getting, maybe you're not going to be able to put things into motion as quickly as you would like. Maybe it's going to take some time, you know, for energies to adjust, for you to transition to this new energy, to integrate it, and to actually be able to see how it is affecting your external reality, which makes sense to me, because I thought that this was kind of strange to come up for the situation, because it's you know, swords are mental. It's like what's going on in your head. So I mean, but maybe that's the situation, is that like having the spiritual practice gaining this new insight, it's not something that has yet affected your external reality. So I think that might be the challenge. Or maybe it could also be that you're not sure what to do with this new insight. You're not sure how to apply it. That could be another thing. So now let's get a look at what opportunity is being presented within this situation. What is the opportunity for group number 1? Wow. Oh, we got 3. But I already took them, so I feel like I have to go with it. Just give me a moment. I'm going to scooch these. Okay. So what we have is the 4 of Wands, 1111, homecoming, celebration, harmony, marriage, family, friends, gathering, reunion, community, stability, and belonging. We have the Empress, creation of life, abundance, maternal, fertility, divine feminine energy, pregnancy, beauty, sensuality, care and nurturing, Mother Earth. And then we also have Temperance, balance, harmony, healing, patience, self-control, moderation, purpose, peace, calm, tranquility, serenity. Sorry, I have a habit of bouncing the card as I read each thing, and it probably makes it really difficult to read it. I'm trying to work on it. But let's see. So yeah, this energy is crazy. The opportunity of this situation is huge. It's an opportunity for a great amount of abundance, of stability, of support, of community, love, all of these things. The 4 of Wands, it is often associated with marriage. So like for some of you with this, the bit of relationship stuff that I was getting earlier for like some of you, not all of you. Even with these cards, I'll explain them both ways. But by sticking to your own spiritual practices and staying connected to your truth and developing that level of trust with yourself as well as with others, of being able to develop trust in the sense of, in like that may mean healing from like past relationships and things like that. There is an opportunity, and even for those of you that this isn't necessarily romantic, but for everyone, there is an opportunity of like a sense of family, a sense of community. The 4 of Wands is about foundation. And so some of you, it is like allowing you to be in an energy where you can have a new chapter in your love life that can lead to marriage, even children for some of you. But in general, this is allowing you to have, I just feel like a sense of peace, a sense of being home, a sense of like stability and happiness and, joy. It's like a, home sweet home kind of feeling. And one that is very balanced, with mutual respect, mutual give and take. But also the Temperance card can sometimes be associated with spirituality, although I feel like that tends more towards to fit with the Star card, but they do actually have kind of similar energies in general. But yeah, you'll be able to have a sense of peace. Like there's an opportunity to build this, like your home base, your place where you have stability and comfort, and just greater abundance in general. This could be material abundance. This could be an abundance of love, an abundance of joy. I'm just getting a lot of positive energy. Definitely fulfilling. Fulfilling on a deep level, not just superficial levels of like having your desires met. It's like all of the above. So let's get a card for action. What action do you need to take in this situation? What action should group number 1 take? Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so we have the 5 of Pentacles in reverse, recovery from financial loss, hope returns, luck, better health, overcoming adversity. So I think that what needs to happen, I mean, it's kind of a strange card to come out for action, but I'm getting that this is just like where to direct your energy. And I think that that is healing. Healing your sense of trust in yourself, healing your sense of trust in others, staying committed to your spiritual practice, whatever that means to you, so that you can heal this mindset of like lack. This could also be to focus on physical finance, like actual finances. I was going to say physical finances. You know what I mean. But to focus on building so that you can feel, so that you can set that foundation for greater abundance. But generally, I'm getting like the broad general message of it is to work on healing the lack mentality that you have in whatever sense that is, whether it's a lack of trust in other people, whether it's a lack of trust in yourself and your ability, or if it is literally finances. Like you need to be of the belief like that this is possible for you, and to be able to open yourself up to that new beginning, a new way of perceiving what is possible in your life. It could also be for some of you to focus on physical health. That is another important practice of meditation and yoga. Those are spiritual things, but they are also help with grounding. So maybe there is the need to take whatever action can help make you feel more grounded. Even if it's as simple as like taking a walk or walking around in the grass barefoot, or whatever it is. But also just paying attention to your physical health. Any of those things could be helpful at this time. So let's get one more card for advice. Just more general advice. What advice is there for group number 1? We have the Six of Pentacles in reverse: debt, one-sided, imbalance, strings attached, gifts, selfishness, self-care, inequality, power dynamics, abuse of generosity. Or, and also, not or, we also have the Four of Cups: contemplation, apathy, reevaluation, feeling unfulfilled, missed opportunity, indifference, discontent, melancholy. So with the Four of Cups, I am getting, like for some of you, this is actually a recommendation to continue meditating or to look into meditating if that's not something that you do. But a sort of reevaluation of what is overall, there's a need for reevaluating what is imbalanced in your life. And this could have to do with, all kinds of different areas of your life. It could be your finances, it could be your health, it could be your relationships with others. It could also be like the power dynamics, like an imbalance in you giving your power away to others, like an imbalance of, being open to hear other opinions, but to not let people lead you astray from what you know to be true deep down, So yeah, the advice is to take a look at any area of your life, however it translates, of imbalance. Self-care is also something that we had been talking about with like physical health. That could be another sense of imbalance. But also I just get, with both of these cards, of a need to be open to receive. Because like the Four of Cups, like she's so caught up in whatever she's thinking about that she's not even like noticing this cup that's being offered to her. And the Six of Pentacles is usually a card of like giving and receiving. And so an additional message, aside from like just the imbalance, I mean, or that could be another form of imbalance, is like if you are always giving, but if you have a hard time opening up to receive from others, like that could translate to another form of imbalance. But in general, the advice I'm getting is to be open to receive. So I'm going to put those there. So I believe that is everything I have for you. I do want to end off with just a couple of these lyric cards for any additional guidance or encouragement. To lose your path is to find your way. That's really interesting that we got that with the love maze and with the lies, trying to, we were talking about what people say leading you astray. And it's like, sometimes you have to feel a little lost. Sometimes you have to, that's a sign. Like, think of it this way. It's like, you could be listening to the lies people say. You could be listening to and just accepting everything that's said in the news or on social media or wherever, like you're getting outside voices, people in your life, what they're saying. And you could feel very confident just blindly following that. But once you get lost, that means it means that you're thinking for yourself. It means that you are actually trying to figure out, like, you have the enough awareness to realize that you can't just blindly follow what other people say. And so there will be a moment of confusion, but understand that when you start to feel lost, that is when you can develop that ability to connect to your own inner light, to your own inner guidance, to your higher wisdom, etc. So I feel like that's a very fitting card. Let's go ahead and get one more. We have, like this, try calling once again until this song that doesn't have a response reaches tomorrow. So that's interesting. I always think of, like, with the Waylean 52 card that I have in this deck, I have it associated with authenticity. And I do feel like there is something really important about once you are connecting to your inner truth, when you become aligned with your authentic self, sometimes you realize that a lot of the people in your life they're not on the same page. And that's, if it's to such a degree that it makes relationships difficult, that, like, that's obviously something that is hard to, that you have to process and work through. But I always feel like the song, the signal that this song refers to is really about, it makes me think of how, like, when you are able to speak your own truth, when you are able to live authentically with who you are, like in alignment with who you truly are on like a soul level, that is how you find the people that are right for you. Whether that's in a romantic relationship, whether that's just friends, whether that's found family, or like partners. It's like, I feel like in order to really know who you are outside of ego and identity and all those things that distract us from who we are truly, from like our true nature, I feel like a sort of spiritual practice is necessary to do that. But that's also really exciting, because that means that once you are able to live in that way, to, stay devoted to yourself, to your true nature, to your path, that's when you're going to meet people that resonate, that people that are on that same frequency with you. So that's really exciting. I think that is all I have for you this time, though. So please let me know what you thought. I always appreciate feedback. And until next time. Hello, group number 2. If you chose the Knight of Coins from the Aurora deck, this is going to be your reading. I'm going to go ahead and put this card right here. I originally wanted to put it off to the side, but there was an extra oracle card and it seemed a little cluttered, so I'm just going to leave it here. But first I want to start by taking a look at some oracle cards that I pre-shuffled to get your current energy. You can use this as an energy check to see if, you know, the energy of this reading matches your energy, whatever your situation is. And then we'll get into the tarot. But the first cards come from the deck I created, the BTS Song of the Soul Oracle. The first one is I'm Fine, with the lyric being, all of the sadness and wounds have already become a memory of the past, and the key word is healing. The second card is Permission to Dance. We don't need to worry because when we fall, we know how to land, and the key word is experience. Then we have Ruby with the keyword shine. We have number 28, don't run from the darkness, embrace your shadow side. And then it says, what aspect of yourself have you been afraid to look at or address? Then we have number 51, Yi. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I'm guessing it's Yi, the sun. And last we have an old garden rose, number 22, the heart. So I am definitely getting a lot of healing energy currently with this group. Not just with this card, with the keyword healing, but Ruby, even though the keyword is shine, one of the uses for that stone is healing trauma and grief, and working through those emotions. And then also, well, with the heart is also talking about healing the emotions, things like that. But with this card here, don't run from the darkness, embrace your shadow side. I read, I don't remember where I read it, but I did read that they've done studies to show that people who experience a wide range of emotions are actually more fulfilled. Like people who, you know, experience the highs and the lows, people who have opened themselves, are in touch with their emotions, those are the people who experience greater fulfillment in their life. And so I feel like this card, I mean, there's so many different ways of interpreting this card, and I'm going to try to get through all of them. But on one level, it's like, don't be worried if you are feeling negative feelings of whether it's like grief, sadness, regret of some kind, anxiety, just anything negative that is not so pleasant to, you know, experience. Don't feel like you are doing something wrong when those emotions come up. Don't resist them. Allow yourself to feel them, because there's actually something really positive going on there, which is allowing you to heal old wounds, to heal past traumas or grief, whatever it is. That is a really positive process, although not always pleasant to go through. Like, in the end, it's definitely worth it. But this card also talking about embracing your shadow side, like the idea of acceptance is really important here. And this is also like important with this card, recognizing that, you know, the things in your past are in the past, right? You've gained a lot of wisdom from going through them, but you don't have to carry the emotional weight with you. You need to accept your past in order to let it go, in order to allow yourself to process the emotions that are coming up. This card talks a lot about listening to your emotions and understanding that whatever you're feeling, there's a reason for it. So even if it isn't something like going on specifically in your day-to-day life and you're just feeling these emotions that seem like they're coming out of nowhere, they're things from your past that are coming up in order to be healed. But also with the shine card and with the sun, like the sun is talking about empowerment. And both of these cards, this one obviously says shine, but this card also talks about allowing your own light to shine, to be radiant, to understand your own radiance. But in order to do that, a lot of times shadow work is necessary. So part of it is like shining a light on, aspects that need to be healed. But also shining a light on the parts of yourself that you're afraid to look at. Acceptance, self-acceptance is really important here. But it's interesting. I feel like I've talked about shadow work in a few of my videos, like on YouTube. So I don't want to get too redundant, but so I'll try to keep this tangent short. But when you're doing shadow work, a lot of people have a sort of misconception on what that is. It's like being afraid of, like, deep down, maybe I'm just like a horrible person, or I have these selfish needs or like selfish desires that, I want to just live for myself and say screw everybody else, or, like whatever it is. Like they expect like shadow work to be something really horrible, that they don't want to look at. But the reason it's your shadow is because you have placed some sort of negative judgment on aspects of yourself. And when you repress those aspects of yourself, they can come out in weird ways. And that's usually when things get kind of ugly and like you really don't want to look at them, but they become that way because you've repressed them. Like a really easy, simple example is thinking about anger, and how, that is an emotion that people typically don't want to feel, right? And there's like a sort of judgment placed on it that's like, oh, I shouldn't feel angry or whatever. So a lot of the times, something happens that makes you angry and you're like, oh, no, I should just let it go. I should be the bigger person. I shouldn't make a big deal out of it, etc. And you move on, but you didn't really let it go. Like you might have said, I'll let it go, but like what you did was repress it. You had a judgment on that you shouldn't feel angry. But what happens when you keep letting it go, right? When you keep getting angry and you're just brushing it aside and trying to just move on and not make a big deal out of it, it builds up. And that's when people, lose their shit, when they blow their top, when they have a temper tantrum or whatever. It's because you weren't allowing yourself to work through your anger. So it built up, and that's when it got ugly. And usually when people do that, they're like, I can't believe I did that. I'm so embarrassed. I need to control my emotions better. And it's like, no, actually, you need to do the opposite. Don't try to control your emotions. It's because you were trying to control them that it got ugly in the first place. But if you were in the habit of accepting your anger without judgment and allowing yourself to feel it, right? Accepting your emotions is not the same thing as acting on them. So it's not to say that you have to like yell at someone or, it's not the same thing. It's just being able to sit with your emotions, because once you do that without resistance, that is what allows you to let go of those emotions. It's what allows them to transform. But it's a similar thing with your shadow. Like when people repress things, like, I don't want to get into this example too much, but like I did hear like there was like a serial killer who killed exclusively women. And his claim was that they had been being promiscuous, or they were tempting him, like they were sinful women who were tempting him and all this stuff. And it's like, clearly that dude had repressed his sexuality, and that's what made it ugly. And I'm not, like that's an extreme example, but we do a similar thing in general with like our shadow aspects, whether that is not wanting to be too self-centered, or not wanting to be prideful, wanting to stay humble with humility. I was trying to say humility and humble at the same time. It wasn't working. But, it's these aspects of self that we think, like we've been conditioned to believe that there's something wrong with them. But in and of themselves, there's nothing like evil about them, right? But that's something something to look at. There could also be, potentially for this group, since we have the card shine and the sun, it could literally be that there is a part of you that, like, maybe you have been raised to believe that you shouldn't draw attention to yourself, or you shouldn't make everything about you. And so you have this sort of negative judgment on people who seem to be like attention seeking or want, the spotlight on them or something like that. But maybe that's a part of you. Like, maybe there's something that, like, you have qualities and like insight, like your existence, like both of these cards talk about understanding your own radiance, understanding like the light that you have that is valuable, like your existence has meaning, and that you should share that with other people. It's not a negative judgment of being self-centered. It's of allowing yourself to be seen, to have an exchange with other people on this planet. Allow them to appreciate your perspective or your gifts, whatever it is. But the Ruby card in particular talks about how it's important to work through past pain. It's important to heal your grief or your, like trauma, especially if you've been in like an abusive, even if it's like psychologically or emotionally abusive relationship, to feel, like a situation that has made you feel small. It's important to heal those things so that you can allow yourself to shine more confidently. So this energy, whether this is an energy that you have been in, for some of you, you may have already been doing shadow work. You may have been in this process of healing. For others of you, this is just the beginning. This is like the energy of what you need to move into. So it could be either, whichever resonates with you. But overall, the general energy for this group is one of healing, heart healing in particular, of embracing and accepting yourself, all aspects of yourself, shining a light on things that need attention, that need healed, and need to be integrated in order for you to shine, in order for you to live your life in a fulfilling and authentic way. I think I want to go ahead and get into the tarot now, though. So hopefully we can get some more details about what your particular situation is. And then I also want to look at the challenges and opportunities of this situation, what action you should take, and any additional advice that might be useful to you. So let me give these cards a bit of a shuffle, and let's see what your current situation is. What do you need to know about at this time? Ooh. So there was a second one that fell on the floor. We have the Seven of Cups and we have the Knight of Cups. So that's interesting. This was actually the signifier card for group number 1. So if you also felt called to that group, maybe give that a watch as well. But what I'm getting from this is that the current situation that you are in is one of having a lot of options. All of this heart healing that you have, if you've been doing it or that you are currently working towards, what that is doing is allowing you to be led from your heart instead of being led from past pain, from fear, from any anxiety that you have. Being able to heal those things is allowing you to connect to your heart in order to determine where you want to go in life. This could be more specific for some of you, like maybe it's not so general. I feel like I tend to talk about these as like a lot of times your higher purpose, your life purpose. But this could also translate more specifically to, if you have been healing from past relationships, doing this healing is allowing you to see your options. I feel like some people have like unhealthy beliefs of like not being desirable to very many people. And so they feel more closed off from the potential of starting a new relationship. But the more healing you do, the more you're going to realize that you have a lot of options. But it's also, maybe you're in a period where you're not entirely sure what you want. This can also translate to career, like if you are trying to figure out your career direction. There could be a number of different ways that this translates into your situation in particular. But overall, I'm getting that you have a lot of options, and it's about connecting to your heart to allow that to guide you and figure out what it is that you want. So next, I want to get a card to represent what your current challenge, the current challenge of this situation that you are facing. What is the current challenge? They keep falling on the floor today. Okay, we have the Tower in reverse. So it could be like, especially, I mean, it's very fitting considering that we've been talking about healing and even like trauma and grief. It could be the case that you went through a very difficult, life-altering situation, an experience that was like very unexpected, that, on one level, I think of this card as like destroying illusions, and being a massive perspective shift, but it can often translate to very real, very difficult life experiences of sudden, unexpected change that makes it feel like your foundation has crumbled, like life falling apart sort of thing. But when it is in reverse, what it's talking about is rebuilding. So once the illusion has shattered, once the aspects of your life that were not meaningful or that were not in alignment with you, or that they just weren't for your highest good, once those things have been cleared out, that's when, in reverse, this card talks about rebuilding. But it could be the case that coming up as a challenge that you are needing to determine where your foundation is. How do you want to rebuild your life? And that makes a lot of sense with, being presented with a lot of different options, trying to figure out where your heart is leading you. It could be that you're not sure where to rebuild, what to, you can see what wasn't right for you. That stuff has been cleared out. That stuff is gone. The illusion has been broken, but maybe you were struggling to find what's left, if that makes sense. So now let's get a card for the opportunity of this situation. Ooh, a bunch fell out, so I'm going to keep shuffling. Another bunch fell out, so I'm going to keep shuffling. I think the message here is that there's lots of opportunities, but let's try to focus on the primary opportunity of this situation. These want to come out, so let's just go with it. We have two. We have the Eight of Swords and we have the Three of Wands. So first of all, you have the opportunity of breaking through any mental barriers that have been in your way. It seems like externally this has happened, those things have been shattered, and now you need to adapt. Now you need to transition and match. I guess integrate would be a better way of saying it, a way of integrating that into your mentality, into your perspective. And that's a lot of what the healing that we were talking about is doing, is like there are a lot of limitations from when we repress things, when we don't work through things, past experiences, even if we have gotten past, like, even if we feel like, oh, those things happened in the past, they don't affect me now emotionally. And that could very well be true. You could feel, like you know, I feel like that's a sign. It's like when talking about a past experience used to always make you cry, but then you talk about it one day or someone brings it up and you feel totally fine. Like that's a sign of your healing. But even if you're in that place, there can be beliefs that we don't realize that we have integrated from negative situations and past experiences, that really limit us, limit our ability to embrace our value and radiance. That sounds cheesy to me, but you know what I mean. To like your inner light, to like it can dim that inner light, and it can keep you from feeling confident about allowing other people to see it. So there's a lot of different ways, you know, so many different ways that like our beliefs can limit the potential. And I mean, it can even limit us from seeing how many options we have. We may think that we don't have, we may feel trapped, but this is an opportunity that's coming with this healing and recognizing all of the options that you have. This is allowing you to heal those mental barriers, those unhealthy beliefs that you might have of limitation. And once you do that, we have the Three of Wands, which is literally the card of expansion. So that's really exciting. Once you can overcome, like this is your opportunity to heal those limiting beliefs so that you can expand in whatever way is relevant to you. Expand in all aspects of your life, really. It doesn't, typically it doesn't just, you know, things on this level when it has to do with deep heart healing and a shift in perspective, a shift in mentality, not one area. It's not going to be just one area that of your life that's going to be affected. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to get out, but all aspects of your life will be affected by this and allow you to expand, allow you to shine, allow you to step into that empowered energy. So that's really exciting. Let's go ahead and take a card for action. I almost felt like I should reshuffle because I didn't even get the words out and it came out, but like it's I already knew what I was trying to go for, and this card makes perfect sense, so we're going to take it. It's the Eight of Cups, and this card talks about walking away from whatever it is. This can be past experiences, this could be unhealthy situations, this could be just a way, this could be your state of mind, walking away from those negative beliefs. But it is about walking towards what is fulfilling to you, which is, you know, what we have with the Knight of Cups here. This is your chance to look for what is really going to be fulfilling to you on a deep, meaningful level. So translated to action, that is like literally just the letting go and pursuing, being allowing yourself to be led by your heart. So let's go ahead and get one more card for, excuse me, I'm like starting to lose my voice here. Let's go ahead and get a card for any additional advice. We have the King of Swords, which is really crazy because that is, that's the signifier card for group 3. I haven't filmed that reading yet, so I don't know, you know, if it sounds like something that would resonate with you. But I already said you might want to watch group number 1. Maybe this group could just benefit from watching all 3 readings. I don't know. But if you don't feel called to watch group number 3 as well, no worries. What I'm getting from this is, I mean, I think of it as like cutting through the BS, cutting away what doesn't serve you, cutting away those, you know, like more to this energy of walking away from things. It's like cutting the extra weight off. What's the expression I'm looking for? The dead weight, removing the dead weight. I don't know. But there could also be a need to, like, it can be difficult when we're going through, you know, this heart healing. We can be overwhelmed sometimes by just the sheer amount of emotions that we're experiencing. So, in light of that, it might be a good idea to try to balance at times any like emotions that you're having with some like rational, practical thinking. On the one hand, like, don't misunderstand, because like you can't rationalize your emotions away. So this is not what I'm trying to recommend. That what that is essentially the same thing as shoving those things, repressing them, shoving them back into your unconscious mind. So I'm not saying to rationalize your emotions in an effort to like dismiss them, but to maybe, you know, like to take, sometimes it's just good to reframe our emotions to help us like get a better perspective on it. Like with I'm thinking of this card, we don't need to worry because when we fall, we know how to land. And like those ideas of integrating experiences, even if they've been really unpleasant, really difficult, painful experiences, to also, like, while you are allowing yourself to feel those emotions and to work through them, to also sort of balance that emotional, the like potential emotional overwhelm, to balance it with like a rational perspective, like understanding, putting into context those experiences and understanding that like those things are what allowed me to get in touch with my heart, to understand who I am. You know, there are things to learn from them. If someone made you feel small in a past relationship, it is important to understand that, like, oh, well, moving forward, I can be aware of when someone's trying to do that. And now that I am reconnected with my true nature, I can make sure that I'm not letting someone dim my light. You know, to be able to set boundaries and learn from those past experiences is like a helpful way of processing that those emotions, is to put them into a context, to see how you can gain wisdom from even unpleasant experiences. You become stronger from, you know, the challenges that you go through in life. So like maybe a mental reframing might help you process your emotions without being swept away by them. I hope that makes sense, because I really want to stress that I'm not saying to not allow yourself to feel your emotions and to rationalize them away. It doesn't work. That is the same thing as repressing them. But balance could be important. But also, like I said, it's you know, being able to be decisive and to be able to distinguish with clarity what is useful and what is not, right? You don't need to forget the past. You just need to let go of any negative beliefs that you may have formed from them and to release those emotions, but you can still gain the experience. And so it's important to be able to have that decisive clarity in order to distinguish between those two. So to end us off, I just want to get a couple of these lyric cards for some extra guidance or encouragement. This is only the beginning. The best is yet to come. So understand that, like, from healing through the past, you know, maybe you've experienced some endings, maybe it's hard to let go of those things, but like you are heading into a new chapter of your life that's going to be even more fulfilling. You're going to feel more yourself, be in your energy, and integrating those shadow aspects of self and bringing them to consciousness is going to allow you all kinds of opportunities. It will allow you to find what is most fulfilling to you. So let's get one more before we end this reading. What is one more card for group number 2? Day or night, the sky's alight. So Even if you feel like you are in a period that is very, very dark, right? If you're going through, you know, emotional healing, you could, you know, maybe you're even going through the dark night of soul. It could be a difficult experience, but understand that even in those times, there is light. So I think that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much again for watching. Leave me feedback if you don't mind, if you have something to share, because I always appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you in my next one. Hello, group number 3. If you chose the King of Swords from the Botanica Tarot, then this is going to be your reading. I'm going to go ahead and put your signifier card over here. And I want to go ahead and get started with some oracle cards that I have pre-shuffled to represent the current energy of your situation or your energy, whichever one ends up resonating with you. But you can use this as an energy check to make sure that you chose the correct reading. So to start off with the, excuse me, to start off with the Song of the Soul oracle that I created, we have War of Hormone with the lyric, "After fighting my hormones again today, I popped my pimple." And the keyword is emotions. We have Diaptase with the keyword heart healing. We have number 2, you can radically change your results by shifting your beliefs. What belief is limiting you? We have number 33, Mama Kocha, keyword water. We have number 9, Caradwin, with the keyword potential. And last we have number 6, the healer, and it is the dog rose. So it's really interesting that this card came out because I did a reading using these same oracle decks. And actually this is the tarot that I used. It isn't a pick a card, but this was the tarot deck that I used. And this card came out, and to be honest, I don't really remember what the message of that reading was, but it clearly had to do with healing because like this card came out. So if you feel called towards it, you might want to check out the YouTube reading. I think it's called What Needs Your Attention or something like that. But also the energy overall of this group has a lot of, I mean, with this emphasis on healing, you have heart healing here, and you also have the healer. So healing is a very prominent theme with these cards. And group number 2 actually had a lot to do with healing as well. And towards the end of the reading, in the advice section, they got King of Swords, which is your signifier card. So if you had been thinking about watching group number 2, you might want to watch that as well. But we'll get into what we have here. This card here, you can radically change your results by shifting your beliefs. This is also about healing. It's about healing specifically limiting beliefs. And I think that ties in really well with this card of potential, because it seems that whatever your past experiences, you have somehow formed very limiting beliefs that, which everyone does this, but they're holding you back from reaching your true potential. You have a lot of greater potential than you realize, and what's keeping you from understanding that are wounds from your past. It could be from past relationships. It could be due to your upbringing. It could be due to simply like social conditioning in general. But it does seem like you are in this energy of healing. But one thing, this card always makes me laugh. I almost thought about changing the lyric that I chose for this card, but I feel like it has a really important message. And And it's simply to remember that, like, although you may have a lot of like emotional wounds that you're working through, it's also important to recognize when your emotions are getting blown out of proportion or exacerbated, exaggerated, whatever might be the case, but due to very simple things such as hormones or to like physical needs, like if you are hungry, like hangry, it does have an effect. Or like you think about little kids, when they get tired, they cry, they get grumpy. And it's like adults do the same thing. We just think that because we, have a fully developed brain, that we can just rationalize, the emotions that come with our physical needs not being met. We can just like rationalize them away and, keep it together and be mature about it. But I think that there is a message here. Like very clearly, you do have things that need healing, but it's also important to recognize anything that might be blowing things out of proportion so that you can get a better perspective on it and make sure that your needs are, self-care and, paying attention to your emotions. They're telling you something. So I think it's important to see where there could be extra things adding to the, like perhaps overwhelming you on an emotional level. But with this card here, Mama Kocha, with the keyword water, I mean, there's so many different ways, that we can talk about water and the significance of it. It is representative of emotions on the one hand, but it is also, I feel like this guidebook talks specifically about how water being fluid, it can, it can work around obstacles, so there could be this need of like allowing yourself, like in this process of healing, to become more flexible, to be able to look at things from multiple perspectives, and so that you can determine what beliefs are helping you and which ones are limiting you. Because there's definitely something that is keeping you from your potential. Like there's a lot of potential for transformation on a personal level, but also like in like potential to transform your life in different areas that you're not tapping into. So I think fluidity, going with the flow more, allowing yourself to work through these emotions, try to consider what they are telling you, and really take a look at where you can shift your perspective on things, where you can, loosen up on any beliefs that you are like stubbornly or rigid, any rigid thinking. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. You don't want to be so closed-minded that you're blocking yourself from reaching that potential. The water card also does talk about cycles, how, like if you think about, a dry season will be followed by rain, or if it's icy or there's snow on the ground, it's only a matter of time before it melts. And like, so there's also, and even with waves, like the tides that ebb and flow, like getting into this, I mean, just getting into flow, but an acceptance of the cycles and the, ebb and flow of things. It's like, maybe you need some time. Maybe you would like to like rush forward and realize your potential, but it seems like you're in this energy of needing to pull back and sort of reassess, do some healing, and just reassess where your perspective is being limited. So I think that's pretty much everything. So I want to go ahead and start getting into the tarot. We're going to take a look at your situation more specifically, the challenge and opportunity of this situation. Excuse me, I must be like starting to lose my voice here. The weather is shifting. But any action that you should take and additional advice. Okay, so to start out, let's get a card to represent your current situation. So we have the King of Cups in reverse. So again, with the water, emotions, it seems like maybe you are, like, it could be either a personal thing of you feeling resistant to really let yourself feel the emotions that are coming up. You may be putting resistance there, like afraid you're going to get swept away. Like, that is a common fear that people have, is like if they allow themselves to like fully open up and cry and just feel sad or whatever it is in their situation, but there's like a fear that like it's just going to release the floodgates and they're going to get swept away. But it could also be the case that there is either someone in your life represented by this King of Cups, or it could be the situation, like whatever, maybe it's your living situation, maybe it's your work situation, maybe it's just like your schedule of feeling like you don't have the time to tap into your emotions. So that could be like, it could be more of an external thing of not being able to have that space to fully explore and heal what you're feeling. But with the fact that you chose the King of Swords, I'm getting more of a sense that, like, the swords represent thoughts and communication, mental activity. And so I feel like there might be, whether it's due to your situation or whether it's a personal tendency that you have, but you're like rationalizing your emotions, which can sometimes be a positive thing. Especially, it's funny because the King of Swords came up in the advice position for the last reading. Spoiler alert if you're gonna watch that after this, or maybe you're coming from there. But it is really funny because I was talking about how having a rational, like creating a context for your emotions, like a way of framing your emotions, can help you keep it in context and to help keep you a little more grounded and have a better perspective. But in this case, I feel like it is tending towards like an unhealthy tendency to try to rationalize your emotions as a way of dismissing them or invalidating them. Like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or or maybe there's just a judgment on being emotional and expressing your emotions that you have. But the truth of the matter is that when you try to rationalize your emotions in that sense of trying to dismiss them, what you are actually doing is repressing them. They don't go away. That's not letting it go. I talked about that in the last reading as well. So if you are coming from there, this is interesting because it's just, I think that like it makes sense to see both sides of the situation. Like, what is good advice for one person can be terrible advice for another. But actually, there's another element where sometimes if we've been too far, if the pendulum has swung too far in one direction, when we try to like course correct or balance it out, a lot of times we can swing too far in the other direction, right? And so it takes a while to, find that middle ground where it's like more balanced. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, it seems like, the situation is one where maybe you're not allowing yourself to feel your emotions fully, or that there's just that risk of, you don't want to try to explain your emotions away, like you shouldn't have them. Like, what the important thing to do is to just acknowledge them and accept them so that you can process them and release them and move on. So let's go ahead and get a card for the challenge of this situation. Wow. We have the 10 of Wands. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just, I guess, my humor. I mean, if you want to talk about a challenge like that, this card is always represents a challenge, right? And the challenge that this translates to is carrying too much, of being overburdened. There is like an element sometimes to this card where it's like you're almost to the finish line. So it's kind of like encouraging, like you've been working at it for a long time, you've been working hard, you're almost there, don't give up. But in this case, especially with these cards that we've gotten, you're carrying unnecessary weight. And that is definitely the case if you have been rationalizing your emotions, if you have been unintentionally repressing your emotions, then you're carrying that weight with you and you don't need to. If you just allowed yourself to feel the things that you don't want to feel and address those things, you would release that weight, right? But in addition to that, what I was bringing up with this card is you're also carrying these limiting beliefs, but these ideas, these beliefs that are restricting you or like adding unnecessary pressure to you, like such as the belief of emotions are not meant to be expressed, be an adult and suck it up, like that's unnecessary weight that you're adding. And there could also be burdens of this sort of stuff, where your emotions are being blown out of proportion because you are not taking care of yourself in some way. If or maybe it's just like, if it's like, if you're a woman and it's that time of the month, then you need to make sure that you're giving yourself the extra rest and care that you need. And it is important to frame that, in a certain, keep that as like a context. But yeah, it just seems like there needs to be this balance, between rationalizing and, and just being overwhelmed by feelings and not being able to process them in a healthy, stable way. But it could also just be that you need to give yourself more rest. You need to be making sure that you are feeding yourself, eating good meals that make you feel good. If you're always eating like fast food out of convenience, you're going to feel sluggish and it's going to make everything you do harder. But it's the convenience that comes with things like that often comes at like a greater cost, right? So if you allow yourself to open up your become more open-minded, if you allow yourself to become more open-minded, then you can begin to see different things that you like. And really, a lot of times it's very subtle shifts that we can make that make a huge difference. But you can not only reflect on, your habits, like bad habits of, not getting enough food or rest or exercise, whatever it is, as well as just beliefs like concerning your own potential, but also concerning emotions, being emotional and working through them and expressing them. So the challenge is going to be for you to figure out how to unburden yourself is basically what I'm getting. All right, so let's see what the opportunity of this situation is. Judgment. I always am excited to see this card, but it's interesting. I feel like it's interesting coming up in this context. But this is the card that I always think of as the higher calling card. Like this is when you, I mean, it could literally be like a wake up call to change the way that you are living. But on a deeper level, on a larger scale, this card to me indicates that this will allow you, I mean, and in this sense of potential, especially, but if you allow yourself to reframe your perspective, let go of, the limiting beliefs, and to allow yourself to process any emotional wounds that you need to let go of to lessen your burden, doing so is going to put you in a position of recognizing your higher calling, your deeper soul purpose. And if you don't really believe in that kind of stuff, if you don't believe that you have like a set like life purpose, it's really just talking about what is really in alignment for you, what you have the potential for within you, and working towards that, making that a part, like the focus of your path. I also feel like I don't often think of of this meaning when I see the judgment card in my readings, but I do know that there is also a very significant meaning to this card about like basically coming to terms with your past. I mean, and it makes perfect sense. If there are things that you need healed, it's also going to, shift your beliefs that if you do the healing, your beliefs are naturally going to shift because you realize, oh, like, I don't know, if it's like something about relationships and you have a negative view on relationships and you don't think that, you're like, no, I'm just better off single or something like that, just for an example. Like if you come to terms with the past, maybe you can realize like, oh, the relationship that you were in the past, or relationships, those weren't a good example of a good, healthy relationship. They could have been toxic. They could have, and that's not to say that all relationships are toxic, but a lot of times we can get into cycles and sort of repeat the same scenarios over and over again because we didn't do the healing. We find ourselves back in the same situations because we didn't learn our lessons, because we were afraid to look at the past and process our emotions concerning it. We end up making the same mistake. So doing, if there are certain memories that you have that are really painful or that have really shaped the way you view life or view other people or view, whatever it is, relationships, love, that's, it could be any number of things, but allowing yourself to feel these emotions is going to shift your perspective, not only in your beliefs overall, but the way you think about your past, the way you view your past situations. And it's probably going to be a lot less painful. It's going to be a lot easier to look at past situations, and then you're going to be able to realize like, oh, you know what? That doesn't affect me anymore. Not only does it not affect me emotionally, I see that it doesn't determine my life and my future. I am not limited by the past. And that's like a really important thing that a lot of people struggle to understand, even though it seems, it might seem really obvious to some of us. There's a lot of, like it's really easy to get into that victim mentality where it's like, oh, well, life isn't fair, or, oh, I don't even know. Like if it weren't for this person screwing me over, I would be in a better place right now, or whatever. And we have like certain things that we allow to define our lives that happened in the past, when the reality is the past doesn't have any weight on your present moment or your future unless you choose to let it. If you choose to heal it and recognize that you can do something in spite of having a rough childhood, or you can choose to move forward on something despite being at a disadvantage in it, if that's like a job or career, education, whatever, it could be any number of scenarios. But once you recognize that the past doesn't doesn't have power over you, then it won't. It will cease to influence your life. And you can take your lessons from it, you can learn from it, but yeah, I hope I expressed that well, or clearly. But I feel like that's a really important thing to recognize. It's also like a similar thing, just use it as another example since we have so much about healing here. The same applies to, like, in a similar sense, the same concept applies to forgiveness and people that you hold grudges towards or resentment towards. If you can recognize, I mean, on the one hand, everyone is human, everyone makes mistakes, right? We all need a bit of grace at times, right? But if you can just have the sort of, acceptance that, like, anyone who hurt you in the past, that's just where they were in their level of personal growth and development. It doesn't mean that they are rotten to the core. And maybe they have learned, maybe they have not. But, people who stay stuck, in an immature mindset, they really miss out on a lot in life, right? So that is sad in itself. It's also, I'm getting onto quite a tangent here, but it's also important to remember that hurt people, right? So someone might be a complete asshole. Someone might be like an actual narcissist. And I mean that in the sense of a personality disorder, not name calling. I don't like when people use it as name calling for someone who is just full of themselves. But you have to understand, like, a narcissist is not born that way. They are created. And that means that they suffered the same abuse that they were giving out to others. And although that doesn't excuse it, although that doesn't mean you deserved it, it's important to remember, in a sense of compassion, I find that it helps forgive. But my point in bringing up the idea of forgiveness was not to defend the people who have wronged you in the past. But although I feel like understanding, being able to find compassion for those individuals is, like, sort of necessary in order to genuinely forgive them and let go of those things. But my point was, in the same way that we're talking about, the past does not have any power over you unless you let it. That is the same with people who have harmed you in the past. If you continue to hold on to your resentment, if you continue to hold on to, like, these grudges, that is giving them, that means that they still have power over you. Even if you have cut them from your life, that means that they still have power over you. You're giving that power to them. And so I feel like that's an important thing to recognize. Forgiving someone doesn't mean that you forget. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the forgive and forget thing. Forgive and let go, but, like, you can still learn from it. Like, you don't have to give someone 70 chances when they've hurt you 69 times, right? You can forgive and still cut people from your life. You can forgive and set boundaries so that they can't harm you again in the future, right? But even if you have cut someone from your life, if you don't find that forgiveness, then they still have power over you. So I just think that is an important thing to consider, especially when trying to heal the past, like, and come to terms with it. But that is the opportunity you have, is to come to terms with the past and let it go so that you can be free to move forward and to reach your full potential. It's so weird. I realized that I didn't put my bracelets on. I filmed the other 2 readings yesterday and I feel like naked, exposed somehow. It's weird. But anyway, which is fitting with that card because usually there's, like, naked people rising up from the coffins. But anyway, moving on. What action should should you be taking in this situation? What is the action that needs to be taken? Okay, so the Four of Swords in reverse. Interesting. I am not sure how to interpret that. I mean, I can work with it. Like the Four of Swords is talking about rest and recovery. And so I think of the reverse as being like coming out of that period. Like you've had your time to rest, now it's time to move on, which I feel like is a little strange considering that we have so much about healing. I would almost expect it to be more in that phase. But like I was talking about with the water card, there's always an ebb and flow. And so maybe you have had this ebb and now it's time to have the flow. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there is also, I mean, everyone has different ways of healing. For some of you, I'm getting that maybe you have already been working on your healing and now you just need to sort of like implement that with your life and move on. Maybe you have that sort of victim mentality. I mean, that's actually, I mean, I feel like that fits. If there was any sort of feelings of like, oh, well, things aren't good for me now because this person did this to me in the past, or I was disadvantaged in this way in the past, or this or that, whatever. And when you can recognize that like a victim mentality only helps you be a victim, when you recognize that, then instead of like being passive, you can recognize that like you are the one who's responsible for your life. You can't control other people, and there's always going to be other things in life that are out of your control, but you always have a choice in how to respond. And so maybe that is what this is talking about. Like, this is not the time to be passive. This is time to take responsibility for your life. This is not the time to sit around and, I don't know, feel sorry for yourself. And I feel like that sounds really harsh. I'm not saying like we are talking to a collective, so maybe you're not resonating with all of this, but translate it in a way that makes sense and applies to your life. It could also, I had something else. What was it? Oh, there is also, for some people, it depends on like what sort of levels of grief you are working through, but sometimes it is important to just keep moving. Like, don't burn yourself out, especially if like you haven't been getting enough rest. Like, make sure you're taking care of your needs, but don't get stuck. And like, I've actually heard this. I feel like I'm getting sidetracked, but this reminded me, it made me think of something I heard like a long time ago, when an actual strategy of therapy, which is really interesting to me, where you do it while walking. Like the movement of walking, it's like the steady rhythmic pace, what it does to your heart rate, things like that. It can actually be a better way to work through painful memories and experiences, is to recall them while walking, because it, I don't know, because it's something about the rhythm and your heart rate. It can keep you feeling stable and more calm while you're doing it, so that you don't feel like you're getting swept away by your emotions. But that's just like a side message that popped into my head, and that might actually be a really good idea for, some of you. If that sounds like something that makes sense, it's like, go for a walk. It doesn't necessarily have to be long, but I would think that it would be better to do it in a place where, like maybe a more peaceful surrounding. But maybe try to work through some of these things when you're walking. Or if you had a really emotional, emotions come up that you've had to work through. Like maybe if you're feeling overwhelmed, go for a walk. Don't just lay around. Balancing it out by like activity of some kind can really, I think that can really help. So I think that one, it's, you know, take whichever whichever explanation or interpretation felt best to you, go with that. But I feel like there's a lot of different ways to interpret that. So let's go ahead and get one more card for any additional advice in this situation. Where did it go? Wow. Another reversal. Interesting. We have the Three of Wands in reverse. Normally, what I get from this card, I mean, upright, it is a card of expansion. It's a card of support. It is like, basically it's generally related to business and enterprise, that sort of thing. But it indicates that like teamwork or support is needed in this situation. It's like you've been successful so far, but like in order to keep going, in order to reach your goal, like you're waiting on some ships to come in or something, right? You're waiting for that support. But when it's reversed, it usually talks about like a lack of planning, being too hasty and moving forward when you're not prepared, when you haven't gathered all your resources. But actually, I guess I just had to like get my brain working around this card for a moment, but like it does make perfect sense. Because when it is in the reverse, like this is the card of expansion. This is the card of reaching your potential, you know, exploring your potential and, you know, taking steps towards it. But an additional meaning of the Three of Wands in reverse, it's not necessarily hasty, lack of planning, that kind of stuff. That is one interpretation. But in this context, I would say that there's this, a sort of fear of, there's this holding. I mean, we already know that you're holding yourself back, but this card can literally indicate that you are holding yourself back from your full potential because you are afraid or because you are uncertain about, you know, how you're going to make it a reality or how you're going to, you know, move forward from that point on. But I would say that the advice in this situation is have a little more faith in yourself. You know, like being courageous doesn't mean that you're not afraid. You know, being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. Like those things, I believe, as like part of the definition is to do something in spite of your fear, not in absence of it, right? So don't be afraid to, one, feel your emotions, to work through your emotions, to come to terms, to allow yourself to come to terms with the past, but really open up your perspective, like become more open-minded in your beliefs. And like, even if you don't know like what it is in particular, maybe like nothing comes to mind and you're like, I don't know what limiting beliefs, like just setting the intention to be more open-minded and mindful about things will allow you to catch yourself when you get into like a negative thinking pattern or something like that. You know what I mean? But don't be afraid to consider what your true potential is, to consider, you know, perhaps a greater life purpose, to open yourself as well. Which card was that? It's this card, I believe. That actually, the guidebook actually, no, it's this, heart healing. I was like I suddenly had like this memory pop into my head of like one of the guidebooks, and I was having a hard time placing where it was coming from, but it's obviously heart healing. This is talking about the difficulty we have when we have been wounded, when we have been hurt, the difficulty we have in keeping our heart open through the process of having experienced pain and betrayal and whatever else, to not let that close us off from other people, from opportunities, from our potential. It's keeping your heart open. And I feel like that is like exactly what this is talking about. A card of expansion, but in the reverse, it's like you're holding back. You're afraid to open up. You're afraid to consider the possibilities. Whichever one, you know, like it could be just like afraid to open yourself up emotionally. But doing so is going to open you up to like a whole new horizon of like potential, you know, expanding horizons. So that's like really exciting, actually. It is literally like, I mean, we probably could have just looked at this card and summarized everything, but you can radically change your results by shifting your beliefs. Those beliefs that were formed, the negative beliefs that you have, came from past hurt, past pain that just needs to be worked through and processed so that you can let it go and open yourself up to, you know, your own potential. I feel like I've said the same thing. I have a tendency to repeat myself, but I feel like this sort of summary helps me keep track of everything and keep things like relating to one another. So hopefully that's not too annoying when I do that. But yeah, I just want to finish off now with a couple of these lyric cards for any additional guidance or encouragement. And then that'll be that. I was going to say, maybe there's no encouragement for you. It's a little dangerous to go too fast. It's a little boring to go too slow. Telepathy. So yeah, definitely balance. In all things, balance. And then even though you've paused for now, don't hide in darkness because light will shine again. So that's definitely making me feel like that ebb and flow. Take your time when you need it, but don't get stuck in, you know, don't let yourself get stagnant. All right, well, that is what I have for you. Thank you so much for being here. Please give me some feedback if you have any to offer. I always appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you in my next one.